We have a couple, I think a couple of other sessions. So actually three. The first one is from actually like to look to, we say today is the day of looking at private sector, what is happening in the private sector, including the vendors as well as the financial institutions. And we actually have a great presentation I'm really forward to is from FINRA, like providing a demo about the solutions that they're developing for machine-readable rulebooks initiatives that can really help to enhance the firm's compliance effort, reduce cost, and aid in risk management. I think it's very important because, as we say, we need. Well, we talked this morning about probably maybe SupTech and RegTech being two sides of these two coins. What we actually think we're landing to is like two dynamic components of the same ecosystem. And so it's a different, I think it does change the relationship. And so through this presentation, we really want to start seeing like what is happening on the other side, what is happening on the private sector side. I have the pleasure to have with us the team of FINRA led by Alex Kachaturian. Alex, I'm sorry if I butchered it, but Kachaturian. So Alex is the director in the Office of Financial Innovation of FINRA. Alex, over to you to present also your colleagues and to start with the demonstration of your solution. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. My name is Alex Kachaturian. I serve as a director in the Office of Financial Innovation, and I'm joined by a few colleagues of mine, including Jaime Werke, who heads the office. Jaime, I'll turn it to you. We do some quick intros.
Sure. I'm Jaime Werke, and I head up our Office of Financial Innovation. Our group is really dedicated to facilitating innovation in a way that's consistent with our broader mandate, which is investor protection and market integrity.
Afshin and Nick.
Great, thank you, Alex and Jaime. My name is Afshin Arabaki. I'm Special Advisor and Associate General Counsel in FINRA's Office of General Counsel. We're on the legal regulatory side. We are the ones responsible for drafting our rules and interpreting them. And in this occasion, we partnered with the Jaime's office, the Office of Financial Innovation, to work on this initiative. And we also have my colleague, Nick Vitalo.
Thanks, Afshin. Nick Vitalo, Assistant General Counsel in FINRA's Office of General Counsel. I work with Afshin, as he mentioned, on legal and interpretive issues concerning the FINRA rules. Alex, do you want to take over and drive?
Yeah, Jaime, you can start off with this next slides.
Sure. So this slide really just gives you an overview of the presentation we plan on giving you today. Starting off with the goals, I would just note, really the crux of the goal was to try to find a way to make our rule book easier to digest, both for our member firms and for others who may be interested in what was going on. And this had two aspects to it. One was, being able to readily identify the relevant rules that they were concerned about, and two, making it easier to comply with those rules as well. And in the hopes of that being able to facilitate greater efficiency and effectiveness in the compliance programs for our member firms, which would translate into better investor protection for the investors that were served. So the second part of the presentation really focused on the development process for the machine-readable rulebook. And what the machine-readable rulebook really is first, it's an underlay of kind of intellectual property that's built by our general counsel's office that basically takes the rulebook and kind of dissects it in a way that makes it easier to figure out what each rule relates to. So we do this through a tagging process. And what this means is that we've taken kind of general industry terms, general business terms, operational terms, or legal terms, identified those and kind of tag the rules according to those. So for example, one of the tag terms that we've identified is things like disclosure or record keeping. So if a rule has a disclosure element to it, even if it may not say the word disclosure in the context of the rules, it'll be tagged as such. That enables you to very quickly be able to pull out the set of rules that relate to specific disclosure, relate to any disclosure requirement. Similarly, if you are a certain type of entity, for example, trading and execution broker or a diversified firm, the rulebook will be tagged according to the types of firms that we regulate. That allows you to be able to do things like cross-filter, which is if you're a certain type of firm concerned with a certain type of activity for a certain type of product, you can pull up the portion of the rules that are really relevant for you. In addition to that, as we're going through that process, we really sought to have an external engagement with the industry. And we did this through a number of processes. One was that we initially developed kind of a mock-up pilot in which we demonstrated that to the industry folks, took a survey, as well as had interviews with various market participants to get feedback about kind of what they would like to see as part of this process, what types of tag terms may be helpful, what type of process may be helpful. We use that to inform the development of an actual prototype, which Afshin and Nick will be demonstrating in a couple minutes, and that'll be the third part of our presentation, where we talk through kind of, after getting this data, putting it into the rulebook, what user interfaces do we develop? One was an API protocol, the other was this search tool that we're calling first. And then Alex will wrap it up by talking about the ways forward that we anticipate for this project. So if you want to move over to the next slide, Alex. So I won't spend much time here. I think we've already largely talked about the goals. I would just note that as part of this, we're really looking to serve both kind of the large, more sophisticated type of firms, as well as kind of the smaller firms, and develop delivery mechanisms that enable both of those types of entities to have an ability to kind of figure out what's in the rule book. And the way we did this was that we have both an API protocol that kind of large firms could use to download all the metadata, as well as kind of this very user-friendly search interface that sits on our website that allows kind of smaller firms or firms that may not have a high level of sophistication to be able to kind of use the underlying information as well. And one final note about kind of the process of developing the machine-readable rulebook. We didn't tag the entire rulebook as part of this initial effort. We tagged 40 of the rules, but those rules were selected carefully. They represent about 50% of the page views that we get for all of our rules. Now, we have hundreds of rules, but these are kind of like the core rules that relate to kind of what we do. And we also talked with our industry committee to make sure that we were capturing all the relevant rules we'd want to as part of this prototype. And then once we were able to tag those rules, we again engaged in a feedback process, including cultivating when this prototype was issued, sending out a request for comments about the whole development process, about kind of the tools that had actually been created, and the usefulness of the machine-readable rulebook. So maybe I'll turn it over to Afshin and Nick to kind of give us the demo, which is kind of the really interesting part.
Okay, let me just load it up on the screen here.
Great, thank you. Again, Jaime, Alex. This tool that Jaime mentioned sits on our main rulebook page. We have hundreds of rules, as Jaime mentioned, and this tool really applies to 40 of those. And if you see there on the column there it depends on your so your left column there, if you're viewing it straight, you have the tool itself. It doesn't have a search function within it. For now, we limited it to a browse function, but through that browse function, you can select the tags that we've applied to these 40 rules, the various tags that we'll go through in a second, and get the results you're looking for. This is intuitive in that you may not know what you're looking for until you see the tag, and you might be then interested in following that path and thread. And by clicking on that particular tag, you'll get other rules that relate to that same concept. The hierarchy here is that we have two main categories. As you can see, there's summary topics in the very top and detailed topics. The summary topics are fundamental core principles and concepts that apply to the securities industry in the United States. For instance, if you go back to summary topics, we have divided them into these 8 categories. And again, they're very fundamental in nature. Some of them are binary. For instance, security type. If you see there is binary debt or equity. It's probably similar to your jurisdictions as well. You sort of like this, general concept of a security product. However, if you go to detailed topics, that's where we get to the more granular, specific type of security, and we've tagged those under investment products. So if you see there, Alex just opened. If you're interested in looking at rules that relate to ADRs, American Depository Receipt securities, then you click on that, the more granular aspect, then you'll get the results you're looking for. That's just a high level overview of the difference between summary topics and detailed topics. Now, going back to summary topics, the tool that we've created allows for you can select either by a single category of a tag, or you can do cross filtering. That's what we call it, cross browsing, where you can select multiple terms and create a winnowed down result or results. So let's just start by account information and management. This is a concept. There's some subjectivity to this. We didn't use an automated means to capture these tags. We manually reviewed the rules basically line by line and created these tags and then curated them, organized them in this fashion. So this is all human effort. But if you see there that third tag under account information and management is account opening, servicing, or termination. It's a pretty lengthy term, but it really captures any rule out of the 40 that have a component or aspect to them that relates to either account opening, the process of servicing the account, and the termination of that relationship. Now, Jaime mentioned that the rules that we selected don't necessarily use those terms. These are terms that the subject matter experts identified as being appropriate to apply to those rules. So, this is the added value, the sort of the human element of it. And we'll get in a second into what the future may look like if it's automated. But for now, it was basically, labor intensive. Right there, you get all the results. If you see, there are about 2 pages of results. And now we have the cross-filtering function that we can apply to this, which is if we select, let's say, customer type, because, and this is, again, a binary choice at this level. It's either retail or non-retail / institutional. That's sort of in our world. Those are the 2. Maybe it's the same in your jurisdictions. So you pick retail as your customer type. And now those original results have winnowed down. We know this because we've done this a couple of times. Trust us, it has winnowed down. And if you want to go further, you can pick another term like obligations and duties. So now you're focused on account opening and servicing or termination. Your customer type is retail. But now you really want to find out, okay, what are the rules that apply to anti-money laundering or knowing your customer obligations? So there we have tagged those terms. You can select them. This is, you've identified them by browsing perhaps. And now you get pretty much the 2 rules out of this universe that have all 3 elements that you tagged present. That's the sort of the cross filter function. If you pick any of these rules, we're going to pick know your customer in this example. It will give you the rule text. The one thing we haven't done in this version is we have not identified where in the rule the tag comes from. So you still have to read the rule and understand its meaning. We actually have a disclosure up front to let the user know that this is not really a tool to rely on for your legal or compliance obligations. And you cannot use this as a defense to say, oh, FINRA, you didn't tag a particular term, therefore I didn't know that was my obligation. You can't use this as for that kind of defense. It's really meant as a resource, a compliance resource, but a resource, not a defense and litigation. But this is to show you the tags appear there on the right hand. The rule text is on the left. And here you can do a reverse lookup as well. Let's say you come here originally, you see all these tags and you're like, oh, what are these? And you're like, okay, that's interesting. I wonder what this will lead to. And you click, let's say, you pick a beneficial interest, ownership, or control, let's say. You click on that term just because you're curious where it would lead. And then I think it's working on that. Result search, yeah. So now it does that reverse lookup. It identifies all the rules that have that tag associated with it. And I'll stop there and we can take questions now or later, but I'm not sure. Alex, are you going to jump to the next topic?
We'll take it at the end. I think Nick is going to show a little bit about the API feature.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Afshin. Thanks, Alex. So in addition to the functionality that Afshin just described from this tool that sits in our rulebook, excuse me, the tags that we created and curated and vetted internally and externally in the manner that Jaime described are also able to be ingested by members of the public through an API functionality. So for member firms or vendors that provide services to member firms, theoretically they could ingest, they have the ability to ingest these tags and this metadata into their systems to layer them onto either a firm's policies and procedures or systems and so forth. And this provides, in our view, an added benefit to member firms and really to the RegTech ecosystem generally. And we think principally this provides the ability to more quickly and more cost effectively manage a firm's regulatory change management processes, where not only are you ingesting tags that are reflective of certain requirements, obligations, so on and so forth with respect to our rules, but in addition, you also get alerts through the API protocol of changes to existing tags. So with that, I think we'll turn it back to Alex to describe next steps and our path forward with respect to this project, and we can take questions as well.
Yeah, so I see Sunil, you've raised your hand. Maybe we'll take that question while I load this up. Okay. We can, oh, I see. Is there a question in the chat? Apologies. Oh, accident. Okay, no worries. So I'll just kind of go through this. So where do we stand now? As Jaime noted, we had sort of a review mechanism, and Afshin touched on this as well with subject matter review. So we started this project several years ago by putting a special notice out to the public, essentially inquiring whether this is something FINRA should move forward with. We got a number of comments indicating that we should, but start on a pilot basis. We had a review committee essentially assess our work, determine, and then we ran a cost-benefit analysis, essentially, or an economic analysis to quantify the benefits to the industry. Having seen that there were benefits to the industry, we then went forward with a multi-year plan to put something out to the public. This is, as you've seen, only available right now for 40 rules. How did we get to 40 rules? Those represent about 50% of the FINRA Rulebook searches. However, we have 600 plus rules to go. So where we stand now is, in conjunction with our October 2022 launch, we put out this special notice and request for comments. And the feedback we received, we got almost 20 comment letters. We also traveled around to a number of conferences and the like to speak with our membership, which are broker dealers, speak with RegTech firms, et cetera. And the feedback was very supportive that our market participants would like to see FINRA continue tagging the rest of the rule book and potentially even consider tagging related content, enforcement actions, guidance notices. So what we did was we looked at those public comments. We saw the feedback that came through, and we convened a roundtable this summer of about 20 plus, 25 or so folks from academia, including from University of Cambridge, thank you very much, as well as from fellow regulators, from legal tech and RegTech experts, as well as a number of chief compliance officers from various broker dealers throughout the country. And where we sort of stood and we put these questions in the special notice was, determining, what is the best way forward. Do we continue tagging manually, which is what we did here? That's obviously going to be a resource intensive. Do we start looking to AI tools, large language models, knowledge graphs, and the like? Do we open this up to an open source community? We attended FINOS conferences and spoke with a number of folks there. So we're currently looking at our next steps to determine what the best way forward to continue to develop this tool. So we will stop here and see if there's any questions. And this QR code here, if anyone wants to pull up the special notice, you can feel free to do that. So Erica, Simone, I'll stop here and see if anyone has questions for our colleagues.
Thank you so much for this presentation. And sorry, the time got shorter because we're running a little bit behind. So we will move swiftly to the next session, the next presentation, to try to close the day on time. But thank you so much for your presentation. Again, the presentation from FINRA, now the next presentation from GFIN, like taking a look at what's happening in the ecosystem, because we need to learn from each other. We talk so much about collaboration, how important it is. So we're very, very grateful for all these colleagues who are stepping in and sharing their work and their insights.